Spike and Australia were friends, and it must be said that Australia treated him with remarkable forbearance.
The news in brief. The Prime Minister, Mr. McMahon, arrived back in Australia today after his overseas tour. He told newsmen at Sydney Airport that he could not have had more valuable discussions with both President Nixon and the British Prime Minister, Mr. Heath.
What about Spike Milligan?
But he refused to give details of the discussions before he had spoken in the House.
What about Spike Milligan?
Mr. McMahon also refused to comment when asked about criticism of him by two former ministers, Mr. Gorton and Mr. Killen.
And Spike Milligan?
The Prime Minister was met at the airport by his two children and members of the Cabinet, including the Treasurer, Mr. Snedden, and Spike Milligan. The Soviet Union has relied increasingly on its own technology to overtake and in some cases surpass the West in weapons development. In their foreword to the 1971-72 edition of Jane's Weapons Systems, the editors say pressure for cuts in defense spending in some Western countries is at least partly responsible for the improved Soviet position.
What position is that?
Australia's national international airline Qantas has been awarded a trophy by the British Guild of Air Pilots and Navigators for its safety record.
And 33 crashes.
Qantas is the second Australian airline to win the Cumberbatch Trophy. TAA won it in 1958. The Australian Post Office is doing good business in the United States.
What?
An agent for the Post Office in New York says sales of stamps to collectors could bring in $200,000 in the first year of business. The South Australian Attorney General, Mr. King, has warned that people in the state who stock or sell the New South Wales publication Searchlight run the risk of prosecution. Mr. King was speaking in the South Australian Parliament.
Well, there was nobody listening.
You see, John Snagg wouldn't have stood for